I'm curious about your thoughts about people who look at spirituality as this woo-woo, especially in our community.
Oh, yeah.
As Black folks.
Yes. It always makes me a little sad, just to be really honest about it. Because when you think about our roots and the African diaspora,
tell them.
This is our roots.
Yeah.
We were forced in a lot of ways to convert to Christianity or because of colonization. And so I always think of it as us going back to our roots.
Yes.
I identify as spiritual and less religious, but I still incorporate some of my Catholicism trainings. Often with religion, you have your designated person, the priest, the pastor, who is delivering the messages of God to you, versus with spirituality, you don't have the middle person. It's just you and Source.
What would you say is Source?
Source is love. Source is acceptance, unconditional love. For me, on some level, it's like figuring out what works best for me.
Right.
So that I'm connecting to Source.
Fully Connected. Welcome back to the Fully Connected podcast, your go-to destination for inspirational conversations to help you become your greatest version. I am your host, Chris Jones, owner of Fully Connected Counseling. And today we have a therapist with us today. She is a psychotherapist, licensed marriage family counselor at the clinical level. And she's been practicing over the last decade, right?
Well, I started in community mental health 20 plus years ago.
20 plus years?
Yeah, 2000. And then I became my first license in California in 2016.
2016.
That's
where it all started.
Yeah. As a therapist, as a psychotherapist, California.
Definitely.
And then
California. San Francisco.
The San Francisco Bay Area,
Okay, there we go. Bay, I like San Francisco.
It's beautiful.
When I went to go to San Francisco, I couldn't even see the bridge because it was like
the fog.
I was like,
it's crazy.
I was like, got my camera, everything.
I know you were ready, huh?
I was excited. I was like, dang.
Yep. The fog is crazy.
The fog is crazy. But anyways, once again, she is a therapist, and we're going to get all those questions out there for everybody out there who wants to know and maybe can't afford therapy or is just too lazy to get to the building.
That happens.
It happens. So tell everybody exactly what you do, the clients that you work with, and
So I work primarily with adults who are struggling with anxiety, depression, life transitions, and then grief. Yeah, that's a huge one.
It's a huge one.
And one of my favorites is the spiritual piece.
Man, and this is why I wanted to bring you on the show, because I remember when you gave me your business card at the mixer there with Katrina, it said Indigo Butterfly Counseling. I was like, this sticks out. I was like, Indigo, like that's like, man, it's just such a vibrant color. But then too, when I think of indigo, I think of like indigo, an indigo child.
Bingo.
And that's what you are.
Yep.
Let's talk about this. What is an indigo child?
So it's so there are different things, like there's crystal children, there's, of course, indigo folks. It just kind of depends on when you were born. And so indigos, we tend to be like many other spiritual folks who, I don't know how deep you want to go. But anyways,
we're going to dive deep. This is the Fully Connected podcast.
So folks who are really empathetic, who are comfortable when it comes to like their spirituality and how they connect to Source.
Right.
And so you talk about vibrations as well, frequencies. And so indigos, along with kind of crystal children, are considered to be folks who incarnated as a way to kind of like uplift humanity and like help people heal and grow and just like strengthen their connection to Source.
Oh, wow.
So, it's big. It's big.
Definitely. So what would you say, how can somebody know if they're an indigo child? Like, maybe I might be, I don't know.
Well,
but maybe. How can one tell if they're an indigo?
Well, I would recommend doing a little research. Reading up on indigos and seeing if it resonates with you. And then also too, birth, whenever you were like born too, like what time period. And see if you fall into like indigo or crystal or whatever. Okay. Because I think there's rainbow kids too.
Rainbow kids, okay. I haven't heard of this one.
So figuring out, like I said, where you fall in the timeline. Kind of like with boomers and Gen was it Gen X? I always say that. And then millennials, and then Gen Z.
Gen
so
Z.
like, yeah, just figuring
They
out.
call them the Zoomers.
Are there Zoomers now?
I guess that's what I heard that on like a podcast. It said Zoomers.
Oh, okay.
But either way. Yeah. So, you know, I have a lot of clients, and even myself, like, you know, people, they say this statement, and maybe you can be able to open it up a little bit. And the statement is, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Can you help the viewers know exactly what does that mean? Because I think a lot of times people just say that, but they don't even know what it means.
Right. So, religion has like its dogma, right? Like, I grew up Catholic. I was raised Catholic. My name is Christina Marie. For those of you who know anything about Catholicism, that's having Marie as a middle name is it's happens a lot.
Wow. I believe my mom's middle name is Maria.
She Catholic?
She was born Catholic.
So there we go.
Wow.
So I identify as spiritual and less religious, but I still incorporate some of my Catholicism training. So like I said, you know, with being religious, like you're going to church, you have your preacher, your priest, or whoever who is like teaching you, you're following the Bible or whatever like religion you're a part of. Like you're following that particular, I don't know, guidance from whatever book is designated for that particular, for that particular religion.
Absolutely.
Versus the spiritual piece, like you have your own. Also, let me back up too with religion. So often with religion, you have your designated person, the priest, the pastor, who is delivering the messages of God to you. Versus with spirituality, you don't have the middle person. It's just you and source.
Okay.
However you define it, whether that's God, whether that's a goddess, whether that's just infinite, whatever.
Okay, infinite, man. So
exactly.
That's what Fully Connected is really about. Fully connecting back.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, fully connecting back. So, so what would be the difference you're saying between spirituality and religion for somebody who might be confused? What would you say is it in a nutshell? What is the main difference? It's like you said, connecting back with you versus externalizing your power.
Yeah. Well, you connect to source, and source, like you have your own intimate relationship. You don't need someone to tell you to do X, Y, and Z. Gotcha. Like you there's so many different things. Like I know we were talking about astrology earlier. And then there's, you know, divination. You think about like oracle cards, tarot cards, doing
that's
like
when they go down the rabbit hole. That's where I stop. I'm gonna be honest. I'm like, all right, man, I'm getting nervous. Like I remember my neighbor, he actually, it was crazy because my neighbor, when I was in an apartment, he kind of looked just like Bradley Cooper. It was ridiculous. He looked just like Bradley Cooper. Wow. No Diddy. And no Diddy. Yep. But anyways, like we were working out one day. He does like very holistic workouts, like getting down to like the ground. And at that time, I was starting my practice. I didn't know what I wanted to name it. And then when we were working out, he pretty much said, hey, you want to get your body fully connected to the ground. And then I immediately went back to my apartment. I was like, that's it.
Yep.
And I remember the next day he brought me to the sound bath.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, man, this is different, man. I had a little experience, man. I was like, what? But that was kind of how the name came about. But I'm curious about a little bit your thoughts about people who are kind of, they look at spirituality as this woo-woo kind of like, especially in our community.
Oh, yeah.
As Black folks.
Yes. And like part of that, it always makes me a little sad, just to be really honest about it. Because when you think about our roots and the African diaspora, like
tell them.
Like this is our roots. Yeah. Like we were forced in a lot of ways to convert to Christianity or whatever because of colonization. And so I always think of it as us going back to our roots.
Yes.
Like if you want to keep your religious, you know, teachings, which like I said, as being born, raised Catholic, there are still parts, like I still say, you know, my Hail Marys every day. I still be saying my Our Fathers every day. But I also, you know, I have my crystals that I wear. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so for me on some level, it's like, again, with the spirituality of like me figuring out what works best for me.
Right.
so that I'm connecting to source.
Got to connect back to source.
Right.
What would you say? Because obviously, you don't work with teens. I think you say you don't work with teens, but I work with a lot of teens, and a lot of teens I feel like are, kind of lost to like, believing if there's something like a higher power.
Yeah.
And what would you say like is source? Like to somebody who is a non-believer.
Yeah.
Of just like not only religion but just altogether, like they're atheists.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, atheists, they're their own special religion, so to speak.
Right.
So, because they have their particulars as well, like things that they're following. So, but as far as source, source is love. Source is acceptance. Of course, like I said, unconditional love, and just like feeling good.
Right.
So
that's the source.
That's the source.
We got to connect back to love.
Right. Exactly.
So that if everybody could just do that, then
oh my God.
Wow.
The world.
But do you feel like there's like certain reasons or vibrations that are stopping us from connecting back to that level of frequency?
Yeah. I feel like there's more than one, of course.
Yeah.
Capitalism being one, and then also two. When we were talking about the woo-woo stuff, of like how sometimes the woo-woo stuff is frowned upon.
Right.
And so, people being discouraged from finding their own path or maybe not even finding, but like being okay with connecting to source in whatever way feels good to them.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Because, I remember on my journey as well, like I met somebody who introduced me to like all this stuff you're talking about and bracelets and all that stuff. And then like now I feel like I'm kind of like in the middle of different things, because I do see some clients who say, hey, I'm spiritual, not religious. But then I see like almost like they just don't want to take accountability for like certain things that maybe religion might limit you to.
Right.
So then like, how can somebody really practice spirituality rather than just saying it? Because a lot of people say they wear their bracelets, but it's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
But isn't there like another level than just saying it and just, meditating every other day?
Right.
And going to yoga class. It's like, I'm spiritual.
Right.
It's like, really?
Right. Well, so as a therapist, because I do have folks that are into the woo-woo stuff, which I love, of course.
Okay. Like hypnotism?
Oh, I've done that before.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we love that. But, but like the woo-woo stuff, like the crystals, astrology. So something, like I get curious with folks. Because, like, when someone says, oh, I'm spiritual.
Right.
Not religious. I would be curious of, like, what does that look like for you? Because for some folks, it could be just like going out and spending time in nature as a way to connect to source. For some people, it's like sound baths to connect to source. Other folks, it could be like sitting by a lake or a pond as a way to connect, or just like swimming. And so like connecting to Mother Gaia in that way.
Okay.
So yeah.
What does that exactly mean?
Mother Gaia is just like earth.
Okay,
Earth energy.
Got you.
So yes,
that's what Erykah Badu was on, something like that, right?
Yeah, she's like next level.
She's what?
We love her. She's next level.
She's next level for sure.
But yeah, so I like when a client says that, like I said, I just get curious of like, what does that look like for you? Because I know what it looks like for me, but like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, what does it look like for you?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, let's tap in.
Man, so much.
Yeah.
So I love being outside. I love being outside. Winter tends to be pretty hard for me because I need a lot of sun. And then, of course, the green. Yep.
Yeah, we go. Yep. Is that your color? Or I'm guessing indigo, obviously.
Well, green from the plants, which I love. You have lots of plants in here.
Some of them are not real.
No, you should see my office.
Definitely.
But yes.
And you're at the Garvey Center now, right?
I am.
Definitely. So I saw you've been practicing your own practice for like what, 6 years?
Oh, yeah, since 2017. I'm not math
about 6 years. And because this month is actually my year 4 for myself, for my own practice. Yeah. So can you tell everybody a little bit about how and why some people need therapy? Because I think some people might be kind of confused to what therapy is and like what they're supposed to do when they get there, because sometimes people want to talk about this, but really they need to talk about this outlier of like really what's going on. So just a little bit on the therapy tip real quick, and we'll go back and toss and go bounce around. But just a little bit on the therapy side real quick.
Yeah. So I hold therapy like it's self-care.
Yes.
Like, it's a space for you to kind of go talk about whatever is bugging you. Mm-hmm. It could be family stuff. It could be work stuff. It could be like, what the hell am I doing with my life stuff? It could be, grief stuff. It could be school stuff.
Yeah.
It could be anything. So just like having the space to kind of talk and work through whatever's bugging you, I think is a good way to describe it.
And it seems like really, like, most of the time it's a relationship conflict, whether it's a relationship conflict either with themselves, their mom, their kids, their coworker. Like, when you think about it, I really feel like it boils down, I don't know if you agree, to some kind of relationship issue. Yeah,
like you said, either with yourself or with somebody else.
Yeah, or even with, with something else,
Even.
With society.
Happens.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
How do you feel about society 2024? Where are we going?
It's funny that you asked that question. When I get onto social media, when I'm on IG or whatever, listening to the news, I'm like, oh, we're all screwed. But I had a moment, and this is just, again, talking about like that relationship to like source. I go to mass, Catholic. I go to mass when I feel called to go, and I always leave with a message. So that's, again, another part of that practice piece of like trusting your intuition of like.
Gotcha. So you still are Catholic?
Yeah. Okay.
We're going to get to that later.
Okay, we'll get to that later. So I went a couple months ago. Just happened to go, had time, was hanging out with the parents, and I was like, hey, and because they still go religiously. Okay. Religiously and like every week. So I was sitting there, and I had this calm, because of course, I'm looking at all the people that are there. I'm just kind of sitting there, and I don't remember what part of mass it was. But anyways, I'm just sitting there, right? And I'm just kind of looking at the people that are present. Yes. And I heard a message of like, we're going to be okay. And this sense of calm came over me. And so when I'm on social media and I'm like doom scrolling or whatever, I try to remind myself of like that moment.
That we're going to be
okay.
Wow.
It may be bumpy. It may get really scary.
But we're going
to be okay. We're going to be okay. Like, sources got us. Like, we're going to be okay for whatever reason in the evolution of human beings. This is where we're at. But we always survive.
Do you feel like we're evolving or devolving? Because I remember when I went out to Kemet 2 years ago out in Egypt.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
And just looking at these structures and everything that we've built.
Yep.
Some people believe that we're declining as the human race. AI, technology. What do you say to that? Maybe you agree or maybe you disagree. Maybe we are evolving or maybe we're going backwards.
So there is something that happens that most folks maybe would identify with this or label it this or not. And it's called a dark night of the soul.
Yes.
Where you like literally everything that you believe about yourself, believe about society, believe about whatever, just kind of crumbles. Yeah. And it can lead you into a very, very, very dark place. But on the other side of that is like you evolve. And so I low-key feel like we are in the middle of a dark night of the soul. And so we just got to write it out. On the other side, we will evolve, become better.
Wow.
But like I said, it's probably going to get bumpy. But we're going to be okay.
How did you get out of your dark night?
Oh, God. I've had a couple. I thought you would just get one. So just real quick.
That's the Saturn's return, right?
Real quick. Yes and no. So real quick. Real quick. So I had my first dark night of the soul, and I ended up in California. So I had it here in Wichita, and was like, I gotta get the hell out of here. And then I went to California, and then I came back. I moved back to Wichita, and I had another dark night of the soul, and I was like, oh God, what's happening? So I know you asked the question of like, how did I get out of it? You just gotta go through it. You got to
walk through hell to get to the other side, right?
Exactly. You just walk through it. So, community is important. Doing the self-care stuff, like make sure you're exercising, drinking, getting enough sleep.
All that stuff.
Right, exactly. Like the basics. Like doing that.
So to be able to get out of hell, you got to walk through it. And so what do you tell to some of your clients who don't want to walk through it, either because of like some traumatic experience or either they're just I mean, lack of better words, lazy. You know?
I love it.
So, like, there's different reasons, though, why people don't get out of their hell, like, for real, because maybe they're addicted, maybe they're, like, in some kind of a toxic relationship, which I really want to talk about.
This is
toxic relationship, some kind of attachment, some kind of trauma.
Yeah.
How can somebody get to the other side?
Yeah. Well, I like to use, again, questions, like asking, curious. Like motivational interviewing is one of my favorite things to do with folks.
Yes.
And so, like, I'll ask folks, like what's getting in the way?
Right.
What do you need?
Yes.
Like, what are you worried will happen if you do X, Y, and Z to feel better? What's within your control? Mm-hmm. So again, just kind of like helping folks to think about and reflect on the behavior and reminding them they have options. And I love to use this phrase with my clients too. It sounds like an opportunity.
I like that. It sounds like an opportunity. And the opportunity may not necessarily be good or bad. Yeah. It's an opportunity to
do X, Y, and Z or
have
not.
an experience.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. That sounds pretty cool. What do you feel like? What are some success stories? Do you have any success stories to share with some of your clients? I mean, with us, with our viewers, we're not the clients. Success stories that you have with your clients. Yeah.
There is one that, well, I mean, one came to mind and then another one quickly pushed that one out. I had a client, this is when I was working in Oakland, and I was working at an all-women's inpatient, short-term inpatient program, co-occurring inpatient program. And I had a client who had been struggling with alcoholism and agoraphobia. I had never worked with anyone with agoraphobia. Yeah. I mean, I was still...
you have to go to their house to do that?
So it's inpatient.
Inpatient,
so she was there, but it was hard for her to leave and to go out by herself.
Because that had high anxiety.
And so she had been using alcohol as a way, like she was self-medicating with alcohol before she came into the program so that she could calm her nerves so that she could go out, right?
Right.
And so she was in the program. I was at AMFT. That's what they're called now, Associate MFT.
Okay,
it used to be an MFT intern.
Okay, that's what it was.
But now it's Associate MFT. But anyways, so I was that, and I had never worked with anyone with agoraphobia, and it was an interesting process. But there was one day we were having our one-on-one, because of course they had their group sessions and then individual. And so we were having an individual session, and she had mentioned multiple times, like, Christina, I just want to be able to go out by myself. Like, I don't know what's going to happen once I complete the program. I just get so anxious. And we were sitting there, and she was a woo-woo client, which I really loved. And so we were sitting there, and she's like, Christina, I don't know. I just want to go for a walk. And I was like, let's go. That's your face. That's exactly how she looked. She's like, oh, hell. I was like, let's go.
Are we going outside?
And so we went, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to walk behind you.
Right.
We're just going to go around the block. Like, if we don't make it to the end of the block, that's cool.
Can you tell a little bit to the people, like, what agoraphobia is? Because some people are kind of like, huh?
It's a fear of, like, being outside the house. I don't know what triggers it. I don't specialize in it.
Yeah. It's like really extreme phobia.
Yeah, like being outside.
Leaving outside.
Like something bad's going to happen if I leave my house.
Everybody.
Right, exactly. We all had a little bit of agoraphobia with COVID because we were like, oh God, if I go out, I might die.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Right,
for
exactly. So, so I told her, I was like, I'll be right behind you. We'll go as far as you want to go. It's fine. And we went around, I'm going to try not to cry. We went around the block, and the look she had, because, I'm walking a few steps behind her, so I can see everything that is happening.
Right.
And the level of confidence she had in that moment. And I remember, I would see her, she was kind of looking at people across the street or whatever. I could see the smile on her face.
Oh, wow.
And so, that's one of my favorite, success.
That's beautiful. Wow. That's something else, man. There's so many different success stories, and there's also those other sides of the success stories too. But we don't have to focus on that today. But pretty much pretty much what I'm hearing. I remember I read on the website you say you like to help people to get unstuck, right? And so where do you see most of your clients, or just people in general, where do they get stuck at?
Yep.
Right here.
Yep.
Let's talk about that.
It's all in the mind. I'm guilty of it too.
Mentalism,
Yeah, exactly. I'll use that client I was just talking about as an example. We often, in my mind, talk ourselves out of doing stuff. Like, we'll get an intuitive hit or an idea, but fear or anxiety will kick up and we'll talk ourselves out of it. And then we won't do the thing. And so kind of like with the client, and I didn't talk myself out of it in that moment, because I could have had that thought of like, oh, we should just go walk. Like, I could have not said that and just sat there and continue to process with her anxiety. But it was like, no, let's do it now. And there was no time to be like, oh, well,
to question it. It's a 5-second rule.
Right, exactly. And so it's like, if you get an idea, like, do it. Like, then. Because again, we'll find all the reasons to not do X, Y, and Z.
Why is that important to do it right when you think of something? Because sometimes people might look at that as impulsive. Like, what if it's something like, let me go to the casino.
Oh, well, that's totally different. if you know it's something that is unhealthy for you, that's totally different.
It's totally different, guys. Totally different. Don't get it twisted.
But if it's something that will improve your life, if it's a dream that you've had, like, do it.
What you're saying. If it's something that's gonna, if it's going north, that's I always tell my clients. We want to make sure that we're going north.
Love that.
Because a lot of times, especially the young adults and the teens, they don't know exactly where they're going, whether it be college or whatnot. So it's like, hey, as long as we're taking steps going north, even if we need to crawl, we're going north.
Right.
We're not going back.
Right.
And we're not just stagnant.
Yeah.
We got to just go north, and then eventually, hopefully, you find something along the way.
Right, exactly. I love that.
Yeah, but you got to get out of the house.
Exactly. Get off your phone.
Ooh.
I know I'm guilty of it too. Get off your phone.
Definitely. What was it like? Because what's your thoughts about the phones and when it comes to relationships, like especially like couples?
Get off the phone. Get off the phone. There was. I'm bad at quotes. My clients hear me say this. I'm bad at quotes, but I love quotes. Like there is a quote that goes something along the lines of whoever or whatever you give your attention to the most is who you're in a relationship with. Ooh. And so if you're on your phone, let me try to. If you're on your phone more than you're connecting with your person, you need to have a nice little conversation with yourself of like, who are you really in a relationship with? So
some people are in a relationship with their phones.
Yeah, and social media.
Dang.
I know, right?
Because attention is really, would you say attention is love?
Yeah, I would say so.
Uh-oh.
I would say so. And time.
Wow. Yeah. Have you read much about John Gottman? The relationship, him and his wife, they would did a study of like these couples, and they pretty much connected them to all these wires and whatnot. Yeah. But they had like this laboratory, but it was really like an apartment. Yeah. And so pretty much at the end of all that, he realized that attention is kind of like, he could tell based on the couple within 15 minutes if they would divorce based on the level of attention.
I believe it.
Based on the level of attention. So it's wow.
It's
Huge.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on now in modern times when it comes to like, dating and relationships? Because there's just so much nowadays, especially with the internet, podcasts, whatnot. But I do see a lot of young adults, female and male, who are trying to find their one. Yeah. Trying to find their person.
Yeah.
And then even people who get divorced or whatnot, still trying to get back out there, all the online apps.
Right.
You have any thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Connection, like focus on connection.
Attachment too.
Right, exactly.
Healthy attachment,
right? Exactly. And again, I know we were talking about like that reflection of like asking yourself, because we evolve, we change. And so something that may have been okay in the past may not be okay now. And so really checking in with yourself of like, where am I now? Like, who do I want to date now? Who do I want to be in a relationship now? And giving yourself, something else I like to say to clients, giving yourself permission to change your mind, to change your behavior.
Okay.
Like if you're in a relationship, you're not feeling it no more, give yourself permission to leave. Like it's okay. Life is short. Like it's okay.
Wow. It's okay. Yeah. What about, because there's clients that I have, and I know you might have too, who are stuck in that relationship. Yeah. What's going on? Is it codependency, or what's the underlying factor what makes somebody not be?
Fear. I think it's the biggest thing. Like, who am I without this person? Will I be able to financially support myself without this person? Will someone love me or like want to spend their life with me like this person agreed to? So yes, I think a lot of fear.
I remember there was something called the loss of aversion. Is pretty much people don't leave unless they feel like their option is going to be 2 or 3 times greater, whether it be a job, relationship, or whatever. So I think like a lot of people are in these relationships and just waiting for an out in a bad way, you know, just like a job.
Again, life is short. life is short. Like I know I don't look my age. I don't act my age. I'm 44. I'm going to be 45 this year, which
serious?
Is crazy. What? Oh, my God.
Wow, no way.
I know,
Christina,
right?
45. When's your birthday?
December. I'm a Capricorn. December 23rd.
Okay. December 23rd. Christmas time.
Yes. That's a whole nother.
Right there with Jesus' birthday.
I know, right? I know the Catholics love it. But anyways, life is short.
Life is short.
Like, do the things.
Right.
Because, and even, you know, when you think about your age, life is short. But also, too, we don't know. Like, either of us could, like, have a heart attack right now. And, like, that'd be it.
Yeah, man.
So it's like, live your life.
Yeah. Do you feel like people are afraid to?
Yes.
What's going on?
I think, again, social media, blessing and a curse.
Blessing and a curse. Let's start off with the blessing.
Connection.
Absolutely.
Access to information that we didn't. I mean, we had what was it, Britannica and like encyclopedias and stuff like that. But now with like Google, like there's so much information you have
everybody
access
can know.
to. Right, exactly. Which is like I think a blessing.
Ignorance is a choice at this point.
For real.
Because they got ChatGPT for free.
Right. So
it's a choice to be ignorant.
Right, exactly. So most definitely pros.
Definitely. The cons of social media, what do you think they are?
There's the comparisons piece. Man. Yeah, and I mean,
especially for a lot of women, right?
Right.
They struggle the most to study the research shows, right? What would you say some of these young women out here who are addicted to social media?
I just hear Rihanna's live your life. Go out, live your life. Again, you know.
It's like vicariously everybody's looking at everybody else's reels and TikToks.
Yeah, and it's not
living their own life.
Right. It's like this, you know, in 5, 10, 20 years from now, is it gonna matter? Like what you're looking at. Yeah. And also, too, like, that's their life. What do you want to do with your life? When you're on your deathbed and you're remembering, what?
That's true. That's true.
Like, how do you, like, and for those of you who believe in the other side, like, when you get to the other side, like what do you want to say that you appreciated and enjoyed about this life? I imagine you're not going to be like, oh, I was on my phone, like, scrolling.
It's like you've been on your phone for like 6 years. Like, it's probably longer than that for a lifetime. Like, good God. Wow.
I imagine you would want to say, hey, I enjoyed traveling. I enjoyed spending time with my family, my friends, like my community.
Speaking of friends, do you feel like it's hard to, like, since you're on this level of awareness, being an Indigo, is it hard for you to connect with certain people?
Yeah.
You know, because people might see you and automatically assume things just because that's how it happens in the Black community.
Right.
They already think you believe one way. Yeah. But how do you deal with... There might be a time where you might feel kind of, I don't know, maybe even lonely at times, you know, because I know I have through my journey of finding out, you know, all this.
Right. It's a lonely path. Yeah. It's a lonely path.
Spirituality or just?
Well, not spirituality.
Okay.
Yeah. But just like being incarnate. So like connecting with other folks who are on
that same, what would you call it? Frequency or?
In a human body.
In a human body, yeah.
So like I feel like it's really interesting because the Bay Area, there's a lot of woo woo. There's a lot of woo woo, so it is easier to connect.
California,
right. It's easier to connect versus being in the Bible Belt because I think there's a lot of closeted woo woo folks here.
There is.
But it's interesting. But I know, right? But it's funny. There was another person at the mixer, and we connected, and she's
on that vibe.
Yes, and so
who, if you don't mind, if they feel comfortable, they may not feel comfortable.
I'll tell you off the thing.
I'm gonna try to guess too, but
right. But so it's interesting because I think I know we were talking about evolution and like what's happening with us, and I've heard this in from some of the folks that I follow, that because life is really difficult right now, that we're finding our soul tribes. We're finding people who are also here to help lift up the vibration, help lift up other folks, to help spread love, healing, and all that. So like we're finding each other, just like us
this,
right? Exactly. So
people are finding their tribe.
Exactly.
Wow. And I feel like there was a time when we already had it.
Yeah.
It's like we got kind of like, because it just seems like why we're so connected, but we're so disconnected.
Yeah.
And so it's like there was a time when we didn't have to search for these people. They were just right there in the community, in the village.
Right.
What happened?
It's funny that you asked that question. I was thinking about it earlier.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to a quick, I think it was like MSNBC or whatever, talk on parents feeling really isolated and burnt out right now. Ooh. And what came to mind was like the tribe, the community piece of like capitalism and like having to work and just like then you throw, and the church, I think years ago was different than what it is now. And so that was a place where folks would come together and just like be in that space of love versus like feeling like you're damned and going to hell. So so I think it was a different energy.
Right. It's different energy. But now the energy has shifted.
It's shifting.
What do you think is helping the energy shift? What can we do like to uplift the energy without being a people pleaser or a codependent kind of person? Because I think sometimes people get it confused. They kind of like, stretch themselves thin, trying to help out everybody, trying to save everybody because they feel like that's their calling. But what's a healthier way to be able to still help people and not exhaust yourself? Because
I've had clients who say that like it feels
they feel like it's selfish to think about themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like, no, you have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other folks. That whole oxygen example of like when the oxygen mask falls,
you gotta put yours on first.
Right, exactly.
Definitely. And I always say self-acceptance before self-love because a lot of people can't even accept themselves. How do we love ourselves? We can't even accept it.
This is true.
And then self-love, how do we have self-love without self-discipline? Yeah. Self-discipline is like the dark side of self-love. Because self-love, you got like bubble bath, self-care, all that stuff. That's easy to do. That's the 5-pound weight.
Right.
But self-discipline is getting to the gym. 6 a.m.
Right.
And if you can have that dark side, if you will, of the self-discipline, that's the stuff that is really like nobody wants to do. Then you'd be fun, I feel like, right?
I love that you said the dark side of that.
Yeah, there's a dark side to everything.
Right. So
that's
your shadow.
The polarities.
Right. It's like your shadow side.
Yeah.
That's like self-sabotaging.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do you bring that balance in so that you can be the discipline? Because like your shadow side is like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the 5 pound. Like I'm not going to go to the gym. And so working with your shadow too. And like that was self-saboteur or whatever.
Right.
So that you can have that self-love and that discipline.
What is self-sabotage?
Staying too long is an example.
It's self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Man.
Like if you know you're not feeling your person, your person's not feeling you. Like sticking around is sabotage in my mind.
Wow.
It's not practicing self-love too.
Because you're just...
Yeah. Wow. You're just there.
Dang.
Not really living your life. In the way that you, the life that you could live.
What if somebody feels bad for leaving, because like, well, this person, this and that, but at the end of the day,
This is where self-love comes in. It may feel selfish to leave, but like self-preservation is a part of self-love. And sometimes that means letting other folks down. Versus
that's
both
the
of
hard,
you.
That's the hard part for so many people.
Yeah,
it
is.
Because it feels like it's when you set that boundary, it feels so mean. And then too, it can maybe feel shallow. Like, man, like you just are going to just go.
You're right.
Because of what?
Yeah. It can feel that way. Man. It can feel that way. But like, are you really, when you think about, like, I would rather someone leave me versus staying in relationship with me because they felt forced to. Like, that didn't feel good. Like, nobody wants to feel like,
right,
you know, like ugh, like you're just here because that feels like selfish to me, because you're not showing up authentically in the relationship. You're not really showing up from a loving place. You're showing up out of some weird obligation.
Man, because so many people see relationships now as like a business in a sense, or just kind of like, hey, this is the best that I'll get. No, you know, because maybe some people, like, I always wonder, like, what if there isn't another person out there for somebody and that is the best they'll get?
I have so many feelings about that. Self-worth comes into mind.
Self-worth. You gotta have it, people.
Yeah.
You gotta have self-worth. That means caring about yourself.
Right. Exactly. And also, too, I mean, if you look at it from a spiritual standpoint of like an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset. So if you're sitting in, this is my best option, there's nothing else for me, that's a lack mindset. And so you're going to continue to attract it and feel unworthy.
Operating in lack instead of abundance.
Exactly. Versus like, I know that there's billions of people on this planet. The likelihood of me connecting with someone else because there's billions of people is very high.
Well, if somebody's just like, well, you know, I'm going to be this age and I need to have a baby by this age because my doctor told me that this, and that.
I have been through that, ladies. I have been through that. And I have also stayed in relationships when I should have left. And that did damage.
Could we talk, if you're okay?
Yeah.
Could we talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like people, you know, hearing those personal stories without maybe sharing anybody's names or nothing can help people grow so they can be their best. But what was your experience? Because I remember mine.
Yeah. Well, we get attached to people. And again, we don't want to go through the pain of letting them go.
Yeah.
And then that weird obligation that I said, that weird obligation of like, oh, well, they expect me to stay. They want me to stay. We do have good moments. Yeah. So why leave? And just again, that moments. Talking, the self-talk, like we were talking about earlier, of like, what happens, what gets in the way of like, is this from us making changes? Wow. Like we'll talk ourselves out of not so good, unhealthy situations.
Yeah. Wow. And so then it's really hard to determine what the right voice is that's telling me to go which path, because then you get very ambivalent and then there's just all this stuff like, I'm just confused, so I'm just going to stay.
Yep.
You know, and it could be a job too.
Oh, 100%.
You know, how can people just start and get away from knowing what's the right thing to do? Because I think that's what you said too earlier. If you think too much about it, what happens?
Yep. You stay. Yeah.
You think too much, you stay.
Yep. Because I think we intuitively know. Yeah. Like, even if we're not hearing like clear guidance from source, we feel it in our body.
Right.
Like, one way to, I don't know, judge how you're doing in a relationship is, what's your body doing? Like, do you feel anxious around this person? Do you feel angry around this person? Do you feel sad around this person? Yeah. Like, those all being cues that you can use versus do I feel happy? Do I feel safe?
That's a big one.
Is my heart moving normally? Do I like how am I feeling?
Because some people, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I heard like, you know, just like if somebody has mommy or daddy issues, some people attract their trauma. Oh yeah, because 100%. Their trauma is familiar. That's 100%. What they grew up with. Yep. So then somebody might end up dating somebody that's like their abusive mother or father or whoever because that's what they know. Right. But it's not good. Right. But it's familiar.
Exactly. Yeah, with clients and myself too. With clients, like I've said exactly what you said. Like we lean towards what's familiar. And so it's the unlearning of that and relearning and practicing being okay in spaces where you feel safe and taken care of.
What helps people to unlearn, you know, because I really realized learning is unlearning.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't really put more things in that, you know, the mind if you're not willing to maybe like, it's almost like a computer. You have to have storage space for these new beliefs and ideas. And some people, they don't want to delete the old ones. Right. Because, man, I love these. Like, imagine when you're going through your phone and delete pictures. You're like, man, I can't delete these pictures. Yeah. But it's like, well, you're going to have to make a decision.
Right. Exactly. It's an opportunity.
It's opportunity. I love it. It's an opportunity.
Yeah. But then also, too, you know, the choices piece. Like, that was something that I most definitely took away working with folks in recovery and substance chemical dependency. It's just like the choice piece. Yeah. You like letting folks know, okay, your option is to either stay in this space that you know is unhealthy, or you can choose to do something different. The choice is yours. Like, these are, like, you have the opportunity to do something different if you want to. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to, okay, stay. Well, how do you want to, like, take care of yourself if you stay in this environment?
So it's kind of giving them that autonomy, like, hey, you can stay.
Exactly.
But because you can't really say exactly what they should do, but you can kind of leave some breadcrumbs.
Exactly. Yep.
He's like, I wouldn't do it. And I'm guilty of it sometimes. Some people come into the office and they're just in a real toxic relationship. And I'm just like, hey, if you want my opinion, I can tell you. But, man, it just, you know, if you bring your car into the mechanic, you know, the mechanic is going to say, hey, like, you can drive to California if you like to, but these brakes probably not
going to make it.
They're going to go out before you even get there.
Right, exactly.
So I would change them.
Yep. Yeah. So in those moments, too, I love that example. I was like, yeah, you're probably not going to make it. But, like...
I'm very visual. I try to give myself the images.
Love it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But just, like, asking folks, like, what's getting in the way?
Definitely.
Like, what are you hoping for? What are you worried about?
With your clients, do you talk to them about, like, attachment, the different attachment styles? Or when it comes to, like, different things, like, with attachment, like, what are some things maybe you focus on, like, to help them with... you know, finding that good, healthy. Yeah.
I tend to be really intentional because that's like psychoeducation. I try to be really intentional about psychoed diagnoses and all that because
the labels.
Because I think sometimes we can, because we're so busy trying to figure out what's wrong with us versus thinking about what's right with us. Right. We can hold on to those labels, and then that sends that message of like, something's wrong with me, I'm broken, I'm unlovable, I'm unfixable, like all that stuff. So I try to be really intentional. If someone brings up an attachment style, I'll talk about it, process, and like, what does this mean to you? What does this look like? Like, do you want to try to change it or whatever? I tend to be very behavioral.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys, I tend to be very behavioral.
What does that mean to people so they can know?
Helping you figure out how to change your behavior.
There we go. We got to change the behavior.
Blocks. Yeah.
You know, because I think sometimes the label can help with like clarification for like, especially for parents. They're like, oh my gosh, this is what this kid is doing. They got borderline personality. But then again, like, especially working with adults, then I can see exactly what you're saying. I've always been kind of aware of that too. I'm like, dang, like, you know, but then sometimes, once again, it can be helpful. Like, hey, well, this is why you have this and that, because I mean, look, you fit the whole criteria right here in the book. Right. But yeah, so again, very intentional. You gotta be intentional.
Exactly, so that it's not getting internalized in a way that it's harmful. Because psychoed, of course, folks want to know like what diagnosis I have, like just like that affirming. Because I think sometimes that's what folks want, is they just want someone to validate, like, this is what's happening with me.
Exactly.
And it's like, yes, this is happening, and how are we going to take care of ourselves?
Do you think there ever will be like a time with technology where we can just like have a blood test for like a mental health diagnosis?
I have not good feelings about that. To be really blunt.
Like what? Like I just think about like, what if like in the future they have like just some test and it says, oh, okay, yes, you have PTSD based on the blood work. Could that be a thing? Like in the future,
I could see that happening. Did you ever see? This is an old movie.
Minority Report.
Gattaca. Did you ever
heard of
see
that, but I haven't seen that. Is it on Netflix? I'm gonna watch it. Gattaca. How do they spell it?
Gattaca.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, sure. It's very futuristic, but everything is kind of so. Yeah, your blood is basically your key to accessing resources. It's like your whole life depends on your blood.
Well, it's like a Black Mirror episode or something.
Yeah, it's really scary.
That's because scary.
Yeah, because there's some folks like depending on your blood type. Like in the movie, like this dude was a janitor. This other dude was like this super prestigious swimmer, and because that was janitor, like he wanted to be up in the world. Like
that's
understand,
like organ trafficking stuff,
huh?
That's like organ trafficking.
It was. You gotta watch it.
Man, you gotta watch
it.
Some dark stuff.
It is. Yeah. So when I hear that, it makes me nervous.
Wow.
Because also too, I think when it comes to mental health and mental health diagnoses, like we are resilient. People are resilient.
Absolutely.
And so, there will be times where someone will come in and they'll be like, I've been diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. And they'll come in and I won't see that. I'll see something different because time is, time, lived experiences. And so like in just tapping into that natural resiliency, they're not presenting that way anymore.
That's how they used to present.
Right, exactly.
But now their presentation is different.
Exactly. And so I'm not diagnosing that because that's not what I'm seeing.
Do you feel like a lot of mental health issues are spiritual?
Yes.
To get back into this conversation of the spirituality, what and why?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, this is my personal beliefs. I think that when we incarnate, we agree to experience certain things. I don't think everything's predetermined, but I think there are certain key moments in our lives where we're meant to meet certain people. We're meant to have certain experiences as like, what's that phrase? Like all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
Like we go through some dark stuff, some bad experiences, traumatic experiences as a way to come back to source, as a way to come back to loving ourselves. But yeah, I think a lot of, why we're here is to learn how to love ourselves, love others. And then, of course, remember that we are connected to God, source, however you describe it, always.
Always.
Yeah.
What if somebody doesn't believe that?
That's okay. It's like, how can you show up in a way that is like, how can you live your best life? I know that's like an old phrase, but like, how can you be happy so that you're not taking your unhappiness out on other folks, like personal responsibility.
Do you think there's anything bigger than happiness?
Love.
Yeah, there we go. Love. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Love.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Love. I would always say like meaning. Meaning. Because I feel like meaning is what gets people up. Because people a lot of people don't love their jobs, but it's like the meaning.
Right.
It's like, hey, I don't want to let anybody down. Like I'm a parent. I gotta, take care, provide, wife, husband.
But see, I hear in that love, like you're showing up doing stuff you don't want to do out of love for the people around you.
Right. Wow.
So yeah.
And so I wanted to get your thoughts though, because I have this client I see on Saturdays virtually, and she pretty much said this, and she says, I'm allergic to feeling good. I'm allergic to, like literally she said, I'm allergic to feeling good. So she's like very pessimistic. Yeah. She's getting better. Yeah. But like when she said it, I'm just like, man, you hit the nail on the head, because she is like allergic to feeling good. Like she's now in a relationship. The guy told her, hey, I love you. And she freaked out, and this is a pattern of hers, not just with relationships, but with just people. And what happens? Obviously trauma, but like, do you think some people are just allergic to feeling good? What is going on in their mind that makes them think that they're allergic?
I know, right?
Because that's where it's like something in there is telling you you're allergic, but like you can't be.
Yeah. The first thing that came to mind, the first question that came to mind when you said that is, who taught you that? Like, whose voice is that? That's saying it's not okay to be this way, to live this way, to experience that. So I would want to know where the root is, like how that got planted.
Wow. Probably somebody in their childhood.
Yep.
Is that where all the roots get planted?
I think some of the deeper ones, but not all of them. Because I think, I mean, you know, life.
Yeah, it's not
we
just
experience stuff.
Right, you're
so,
not a kid forever.
Right, exactly.
Some people are.
They
Mentally,
can be.
or
They
emotionally.
can be. They can be. They can be.
Yeah,
they
we'll
can
leave
be.
it at that.
Right, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I always said I wish that God would make us look our cognitive age instead of our biological age, so then you can know really who you're dealing with. You but this is you're a 16-year-old. You're not even you're not 30. You're 16.
Yeah.
So then it would make sense.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, okay, I see.
Right. But people give themselves away though.
Right.
You talk to them long enough, you can be like, oh yeah. And you start hearing about some of their lived experiences. You're like, oh yeah, I can see where you're stunted, where the development stopped.
Definitely. But how did you come back to Wichita?
Family.
Okay.
It's so interesting. When I moved to California, I thought that was it. I thought I was gonna stay there. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was gonna be my forever home.
Right.
I came back to visit came back to Wichita in 2021 to visit.
2021.
And I saw the age on my parents, and I was like, oh my God.
Wow, they're at that age where you gotta. Man.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. Like, again, time is limited. And so I was like, I gotta go home.
Yeah.
And so I went back.
They're doing okay?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, but California compared to Wichita, obviously.
There are pros and cons.
There's pros and cons. What are some of the cons about California? Because I always wanted to live there. Yeah.
It's crowded.
It's
very crowded.
San Francisco.
The Bay Area, it's very crowded.
It is very crowded.
I worked for a while with unhoused folks in the shelters.
So many out there, right?
Yeah. So I was at that point, because I had lived in San Francisco for a little bit and then was in Oakland the majority of the time. But I was, living in Oakland and then commuting into the city, into San Francisco. And I was working, like I said, at two of the shelters, homeless shelters in the city. And there would be times where I would be sitting in my office. And it's like the shelter, like one of them, I won't say what it is because I don't know if I can. But there was one of the shelters I worked in. It was like the offices. And then, we had the windows and we could see into the waiting room where folks would wait to see if they would get a bed. And then there was windows beyond that. And I could see the skyline of the city. And I remember I would sit there sometimes and I would get really angry because I'm sitting there and I could literally see the haves and the have-nots of like these big high rises. And then I see these folks who are just praying that they'll get a bed for the night, that they'll get a meal and not have to go outside and sleep on the street and wait until tomorrow to try again to get a bed and to get a meal.
It's like the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
It took place in San Francisco. Wow.
Exactly.
So what's your thoughts about the haves and the have-nots? Because it seems like now that gap is closing, like in the middle, It's becoming more haves. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to say more haves, but it's becoming more have-nots.
Yeah.
And, the dynamic is just not looking good on the outside.
Right. So I hold... Again, this is where spirituality comes in, but also like having to be really careful to not do any type of spiritual bypassing.
Ooh, that's a real thing.
It is.
We're going to have to talk about that.
It is.
Man.
So, the spiritual side of me is like, we live in an abundant universe. Like everything is always expanding.
Everything.
Like we all have access to everything that we need.
Right. There's no scarcity. That's an illusion.
Exactly.
Even though it feels real sometimes.
Exactly. But the 3D human part of me is like, oh God, there's not enough. Oh no.
Wow.
So
I know. So that's why people don't feel enough. Is it because of the 3D?
Exactly.
Wow.
So I know we were talking about it just left me.
The spiritual bypassing, but also to, the lack mentality versus scarcity mentality and the dark night of the soul with human beings right now. I think part of this space that we're in, the dark night of the soul, is that battle of like haves and haves nots. And us all waking up to there is enough for all of us. Right.
And that the folks who have more, like letting go of their scarcity. Because I imagine for some of them, they're hoarding their wealth out of scarcity.
Absolutely. Because they don't want to be a have-not.
Exactly. So they have their work to do as far as letting go of that scarcity mindset. And we have our work to do as well of remembering that there's abundance everywhere.
There's abundance everywhere, man. I love it. It sounds so beautiful, and some people might feel like it sounds new agey, but it's just facts.
Right.
You know, it's just facts. But I'm glad you brought that up, because spiritual bypassing. Oh, man. I remember when I learned that term. Can you tell people exactly what this is? Because I have friends and family who are religious or, and they'll use, God or church or religion or even spirituality as a way to bypass and ignore. So can you tell the viewers like what this is?
My first experiences, I think, with spiritual bypassing were there were the school that I went to, I won't name it. The school that I went to, there were a lot of privileged white folks that went there. Yeah. And a lot of those privileged white folks had the privilege, the money to like go to India. And so they came back, and not to knock all white folks who have been to India, but there are many white folks who go to India and they go to their little yoga retreat, and they come back and they're like, I'm so awakened, like I am the best being now because I've been, while ignoring that they have totally, I'm getting riled up, ignoring that they have stolen, to be really honest. Yeah. Like someone else's culture, and they're like now using it for themselves. Wow. While ignoring the, ignoring their privilege.
Okay.
And also ignoring whatever economic impact it may have had on the brown folks.
Right.
In India.
And this is something that's always been going on.
Exactly.
Culture vulture.
Exactly.
Vulture. But then again, it's just kind of like, all of a sudden I would say, I don't know what year it was, but now mindfulness, meditation, everything became so commercialized, popularized, like very popular. You see people meditate in the State Farm commercial. Right. But like meditation, we've been doing this as African folks they learned that from us.
Exactly.
Like, because when I was in the temples, you would see people sitting like that. The Hindus and everything, they learned that from us. They came out the mystery schools.
Yeah. So it's just like this disconnect.
It's a big one.
When you ignore the suffering of other folks, but then also to your suffering. That's something I left out when I went on my lower end. Because spiritual bypassing can also look like everything's all good. Like nothing bad is happening in the world.
God got this one.
Right. Kind of like I talked about, holding the abundance mindset, but also acknowledging that suffering is happening. With the spiritual bypassing, be like, everything is abundant. Like no bad things happen in this world. Like everything's all good.
But that's not the case.
That's not the case.
It's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Suffering does happen.
It's difficult because like even like when you said when you went to mass that day, and then you said you heard that spirit, and it was like everything's gonna be okay.
Right.
What if somebody bypasses like with something like that? Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. Denial came to mind when you said that, because some folks, denial is real. Like denial is real. And I guess maybe that is a part of spiritual bypassing for some folks. Is like the denial that...
Because spiritual bypassing, would you say denial is a big part of spiritual bypassing?
I think so. Now as we're talking about it,
it's denial. So. But then you're denying something, but then you're using the spiritual aspect as a way to ignore these deeper things. Because like I always say, like we're like a river, like... source or God, universe, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. We're like this river, and eventually the river gets clogged up. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people want to be able to just take out the Gatorade bottles and the Walmart plastic bags. But really the real, true healing is in that work. Yeah, exactly. It's in the heavy work, like the anger, the shame, the guilt. That's the stuff clogging up the river. Exactly. So it's just like, that's what kind of made me put at odds as far as religion and spirituality, because I would see people just kind of like just pray away. I'm just like, well, you can't just do that. And I would see people just meditate or just wear their stones or whatnot. Yeah. But it's just like, man, it's like you really have to do this work. Yep. And I see so many people avoiding having to do that heavy lifting because it's tough.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
It is. But it leads. Mm-hmm. It's worth the work because it leads you to that place of love, not just for yourself, but for others too. Because I think we're innately wired to when we see someone suffering to care and to want to help.
Yes,
like I think
so.
we're hardwired that way.
Yeah.
Minus psychopaths. But like I think
okay, well, hold on, what was it?
but they deserve love too, of course, they're human beings.
I don't know, man. I would tell any client who's dealing with a psychopath to say, hey,
depending on their behavior. Because there are 1% of the population is psychopaths. So like
yeah, I hope so. Shoot.
But that's still 1%.
But the crazy thing is society favors these kind of folks, these narcissistic folks, the dark triad, right? They favor that because even like we had a podcast guest on the other one, the one that got deleted, but he talked about how he got to his, being able to be an executive, but it's just like you have to be very materialistic in this world, and like so the person who is like narcissistic in a way or psychopathic, they actually could get a lot of success financially, status wise in this world that we live in.
But see, I love that you mentioned financial and the status and all that.
That's not the prize.
Fake-ish.
You said fake-ish?
That's fake-ish. It's fake shit.
Okay, there we go. It's fake shit.
At the end of the day, that doesn't matter.
Dang.
Community matters.
Right.
Loving yourself matters.
Yes.
Like, we can't take money with us when we die. Right. So how much does it matter? Why
does it matter so much for some people?
We've been, again, the learning.
We've
been taught to hate ourselves. And so to make ourselves feel better, we go buy stuff.
So is that, have we been programmed to not feel good about ourselves so we can buy more products?
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
Identity booster. We're buying identity boosters.
Yeah, exactly. And ego boosters.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Feel good boosters.
So let me get this Versace purse.
Yeah.
Or shoes.
Right.
To boost my identity.
Right. My worth, to help me feel more worthy, more deserving, more seen, more. Yeah.
And so it's so difficult because then even once again, I see clients who they know that, but then at the same time now it can kind of be depressing to kind of know that too. It's just like, I'm over here working so hard, 40 plus hours a week, trying to get this check, trying to get this, really it's not even paper now, just this number that goes in my account, direct deposit. Right. And then I can't even take this with me.
Yeah, no.
It's like, what are we doing?
Right. So this is where you really have to know yourself.
Yes.
Because you know what? Why are you buying a thing? Like, are you buying a thing when you're feeling really good and you're happy and you don't need it to feel better? Or are you buying the thing when you feel like shit and you need to feel better? Want to feel better.
Right.
So again, self-awareness is so key with everything, with how you're moving throughout the world. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a Versace bag. Like, there's nothing wrong with having Gucci shoes. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, how are you when you're making that purchase? Like, what's the need?
Oh, okay, so where is this coming from? Why do you need these Gucci shoes? Is it because you want to show off? Is it because you just really need some shoes to go to work?
Right.
But it's like, what do you why do you pay $1,000, $1,200 for these shoes though? Yeah. So like, could it really, like, think about it? Because if you do have to pay $1,200 for a pair of shoes, I feel like that is some kind of like external kind of flex, if you will, because you could just get regular shoes anywhere. You could.
Steve Jobs always wore the same stuff. And Mark Zuckerberg, whatever his name, he wears like American Eagle or something. I don't know, but like something,
I always feel like white people can wear whatever they want. Because as far as black folks, we've always had to worry about our image. And so like, I feel like we struggle the most. And obviously that's why we spend the most money out of our community, because we're very materialistic, because we don't like, and we've been taught that not to love ourselves the most. So, even just now realizing this, so it's like we need all these extra identity boosters because society has told us as far as black folks that we're not good enough. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And scientifically, that doesn't really correlate. Right. Exactly. Obviously, we are good enough. Exactly. But we've been programmed that, right? And some people are still under that spell, right. And I think those people, they spend a lot of money, and yes,
I agree 100% with everything you just said. And just to add to it, this is how you keep folks poor, too.
Damn. Generational
on some
poverty.
levels. Not everybody. I know not everybody.
Right.
But like some folks are
Absolutely.
like they're caught in the capitalism hamster wheel.
Capitalism hamster wheel. I love it.
And
Wow.
so yeah.
Wow, capitalism hamster
I know, right?
wheel.
Right.
Because honestly, we're born into the capitalistic world, so like a part of me likes it. I don't really want it to be like communism, but like, could there be an alternative like that's not good? Because I feel like both of those could be kind of extreme, but it's like, you know, I'm not an economic major or anything like that,
either.
but it just feels like there has to. I always wonder like if there's advanced beings on other planets, which I believe that there has to be. And if they're humanoid like us, in a sense, how do they operate their society? You know, that stuff that I think about is like, how do they is it a bargain system?
That's what I think.
How do other advanced beings operate? What's your thoughts? Like, how could they be really running their society if they're out there?
I agree with you 100%.
You know what I mean?
Said, but I think the bartering, that's what I would imagine.
Right.
Is like, hey, I like those glasses. I know you mentioned my shoes earlier. If
you want to trade it?
Yeah, you want to trade it if they fit. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
and I want to believe that too. But like that is a primitive way because that's how we started before the money. So just like if there's like these advanced beings, because we really just got like this in the last 1,000 years at that. But like imagine if there's a society out there in the cosmos that's been doing this for like the last 100,000 years. And they're able to preserve, like they have some really advanced stuff.
I think we're on the path to that. I mean, you look at Zoomers now.
Yeah, Gen Zs.
I think certain structures are going to collapse because it's not sustainable. What we've been doing, we're seeing now, especially that gap between the haves and the haves not, is getting wider and wider, and people are getting fed up. They're like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Yeah, I think those systems, those structures are going to crumble. It may not be in our lifetime, but like it's gonna happen. I think we're on the path.
So, do you believe there's life on other planets?
Hell yeah! Our universe is one of what, billions? There's no way there's not life somewhere else.
Absolutely,
no way.
What do you say to people who actually try to disagree with that?
That's where they are.
I feel like it's very narcissistic to say, hey, we're the only ones in the cosmos. Like, it's like, what?
Right.
Like, are you serious?
So with folks like that, I hope that's where they are on their spiritual, their soul evolution.
Right.
Like, I don't try to change minds. Like, we know where we are on our timeline. And there are folks like Erykah Badu who's further ahead than me. Right. There are folks who are behind me. Like, this is just where I'm at. This is where I'm at.
This is where they're at.
Where I'm at.
Well, so Erykah Badu, she would be like way ahead, definitely way ahead of me.
Yeah, she's next.
She got that tea. She put something in the tea.
I know, right?
What did she put in the tea? Would you drink? If you went to Erykah Badu's house and she gave you tea, would you drink it?
I would, but I would also expect I was gonna go on some sort of trip. I don't know, like ayahuasca.
Would you question it? Or you just like, oh?
I would want to know what it is, just in case if I want to do it again.
And she says. She probably would say something like, just, I don't know, you're awakening.
I would be like, I've had many, so this will be another. I'm down for it. Let's go.
How can somebody know when they are going through an awakening? You know, there's like different things people read, but like, how do you know if you're, going through an awakening? Yeah. So
I can speak, because I've had a couple in this lifetime. I can speak for myself. The dark night of the soul typically preceded an awakening. My first awakening though, that I was living in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I had met someone who was very key in my awakening. We crashed and burned, let me just say that. But in that process, I experienced a lot of love. Yeah. And just like, it's funny, it's hard to articulate it. But yeah, love, people were responding to me in ways I had never been responded to. There were times where I'd be walking around San Francisco and men would bow to me and say, "My goddess."
Oh.
I have never experienced that since, but that's the level that we were at.
See, if you are a single woman out there, you need to go to San Francisco so that people can bow down to you.
Only if you're in the awakening energy.
Only if you're in the awakening energy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
You got to be in that. Otherwise, no. But yeah, so he, the person that was integral in like my awakening, he was very spiritual too. And so I think we triggered something, or he triggered something in me.
Because what's the purpose of an awakening?
To help you get closer to remembering who you are,
which is
as a soul being, is an extension of God, which means you're basically just a love. You're like your love in 3D.
Wow.
I know, it's really deep.
No, for real. No, it's real, because I remember, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Alan Watts, but he said pretty much like, imagine if you have this styrofoam cup and you get a needle and you poke all these like, thousands of different holes or whatnot.
Yeah.
Or as many as you can, and then you shine a flashlight through the styrofoam cup with all the holes in it in a dark room, and then one of those holes are you, me, the person down the street. But we all come from the same source, which is that light.
Exactly.
And so then it's just like kind of like we have this, in that example, the styrofoam cup over all of us, and we don't really see that we're just different points of attentions of consciousness.
Yep, exactly.
Which is crazy to think.
But I mean, yes, and perfect example, and it's fascinating, like taking a step back and looking at it.
Yeah.
Because you think about like collective consciousness, we can see it in social media, in the posts. If you go to the comments and you see negative after negative after negative after negative after negative after negative. Say you're in the best mood and you go and you get on social media and you start reading the comments, then you start getting pessimistic. Like, emotions are contagious.
Emotions are contagious.
Collective consciousness. Like, that's an example. If you don't believe it's real, again, if you don't want to feel so good, like say you're having a good day, you don't want to feel so good anymore, go get on social media. Stay on there like an hour. See how you feel afterwards.
That's to feel bad. And some people want to do that, I guess, because they're on it all the time.
Right. But they don't realize, and see this again, that awareness. I think folks don't always realize how the toxicity that can happen. It doesn't always happen on social media, but can happen depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah.
How they're taking that in, and it's causing them to feel bad.
Yeah, wow.
Like if you're listening to happy stuff, like your mood's going to get better.
Absolutely.
But if you're listening to not so good stuff, your mood's going to go down. And so being, again, really intentional, this just came to mind. For those of you who don't know, like alcohol is a depressant. Yes. And so I always try to remind my clients, especially clients who do struggle with depression, to be really intentional about when they're consuming alcohol, because it's like it's going to make your mood worse. Like it's going to make you more depressed. Same thing with social media. Like if you are susceptible to anxiety, depression, being really intentional of what you're looking at. And what you're consuming.
But in the moment when you're drinking or even on social media, it feels like nothing is wrong. Until after, I guess, right? Just like with liquor, it's like, okay, nothing. Like it might even make you feel better, give you the illusion that you feel better. You get all these likes, comments, whatever it is.
Again, I think self-awareness is key. Because if you are super self-aware or have some moderate level of awareness, you'll notice, you can feel the shift in yourself when you're starting to go down or when you're starting to go up too.
Right.
You can
feel the shift.
Right.
It's there.
Right. Like, am I feeling happy? Am I feeling motivated? Or am I feeling like crap? Am I feeling like I want to kill myself? To be really blunt. So like, that awareness is key. Like, when are you going to consume social media? How do you want to consume it? Same way you would alcohol.
Briefly, like little bits here and there, and knowing your limit.
Exactly.
So maybe people need to know their limit with social media, because some people will just
it's doom scroll.
Yeah.
And then they just you just go down the rabbit hole and then you don't feel good.
And it's crazy because we don't really have much like research or studies because it's only been about like 10 years. Like Instagram came out in 2011.
Yeah.
And Instagram is way different than MySpace. So like we don't really have too much.
There is more research. I wish I could remember. There was a guy. Oh, I wish I could remember. He's a researcher. And he just came out with a study. And he was looking at the effects of social media on men and women. And just like in the likelihood of like depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts. Like the more you're on it, the likelihood of those things happening going up. It's so like tough. The research is starting to be published, I guess. So yes. Okay.
What's your relationship with social media? Because I know you said, you know, you shared with me your birthday and whatnot. Yeah. But like obviously like when you were like in your 20s and 30s, you didn't have to worry about this. So like I bet it was probably a beautiful time, at least maybe, because you didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to worry about like, you know, online dating and all that crap.
Yeah.
You know, but like now like younger folks, it's almost like if you don't have a social media, people look at you like something wrong with you. They're like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. It was different. Community, there was more of a sense of community.
Man, that's what I
like.
miss.
If you want to talk to your friends, you got to call them. I got to hear their voice. Couldn't just like
gotta
text
remember the number.
them. Right? Yeah, got to remember the number. So yeah, text. You know, go meet up, go hang out. Versus sending memes back and forth all day.
Right. I always hate that.
So yeah, it was different. So
that is the way of communicating now. Just sending the memes, sending the TikTok.
Yeah. So I know we talked about intentionality, like being really intentional.
Yes.
So I prefer the funny stuff, like dog videos, cat videos, like. So yeah. So I try to be really intentional with how I'm consuming social media.
So just like humor and like something light, not something too heavy. Because especially as a therapist, we already hear this heavy stuff all day when we go home. Like I don't know about how many clients you see a week, but you know, when you get home, you're not really trying to, you know, you've heard these experiences from people. So
Right.
Definitely. But I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really do. I'm glad that we were able to do this, you know, and hopefully everything recorded finally so we don't have to re-record anything, man. But if there's anything you wanted to say in closing or like tell people who might want to book with you or whatnot, where they can reach out to you.
Christina Winesberry, MFT. You can Google me. I have a
Indigo.
Indigo. Thank you. Indigo Butterfly Counseling. If you want to find me on IG, I think my handle is Laid Back Therapist.
Okay.
So yeah, the Laid Back Therapist.
That's nice. The Laid Back Therapist. I like that. That. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. Definitely good conversation. Easy to talk to. But so we're gonna sign out, guys. This is the Fully Connected Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. All right. Take care. Fully Connected.